I wanna celebrate this life forever.
Come on.
I'm living it, not dreaming it. We getting it, black luxury. I wanna celebrate this life forever.
Yeah.
I'm living it, not dreaming it. We getting it, black luxury.
A paradigm shift is occurring across the country. Justice is expediting the process of what we're becoming. Universally unified in alignment with our greatness, which lay dormant for ages, but now it has been awakened. In this dispensation, we've been repositioned for a movement, excluding the lie of being viewed as 3/5 of a human. My lineage says different. God listens, these prayers different. My people are royal. Tell Jordan this air's different. Speaking the air, make a fist, lift it up in the air with it. Uncomfortable with us being aware, that's their business. You can never deny the fact my people spend trillions as consumers. We tired of that, so now we focus on buying black. Black dollars circulate with us, and ain't no buying that building. Multi-generational wealth is where you find us at. Won't be satisfied until all of mine living comfortably. Think before you come for me, redefining black luxury. Yeah.
I wanna celebrate this life forever. I'm living it, not dreaming it. We getting it, black luxury. I wanna celebrate this life forever.
What's up, everybody?
Hey.
What's going on? How y'all doing? How y'all feeling?
Doing all right. How you doing?
I'm good. So then I missed you.
Oh, I missed me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed you too.
I missed you too.
Thank you. It's good to be missed.
Yeah.
Y'all feeling good though?
I'm feeling great.
I'm feeling great.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I just turned 29.
I was just gonna say that. Somebody had a birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Hey,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Hey.
Nah, the only bad part about that is now I gotta act 29.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's a blessing.
Yeah, it get quiet on that one. Right? You
I was
knocking on
like-
30, it's like,
But you know, it's not so bad though.
that's nice. Learning experience.
Every day you growing, every day you learning, every day you gaining wisdom. So count it as that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Off you.
We gonna count it as that.
Count it as that. We got a good show today.
Yeah.
How y'all feeling in Revolution Ready Land? Y'all like, love, share this. We got a good guest coming up today. State Representative David Bowen. There's some things we need to chop up first, though. Anything in particular?
I don't think we have anything in particular. Do we?
No, not that I know of.
I'm just checking in with y'all.
Uh.
Just checking in so that way the
I
people
mean-
know if we got some news and some hot topics for them, we can share it with them.
We got some bills that need to be,
We got to change them laws.
Yeah.
Didn't a certain chief?
Yes.
You know,
oh my God.
make his exit?
Yeah, he made his exit. We are so happy about that. I think we should clap for that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
fact
There we go.
for those of you who don't know, he's just not a good man, not a good person. We're glad to see him go. Wauwatosa's Police Chief Barry Weber, retired yesterday. We're glad to see him go, but at the same time, we do wanted him to stay in there so he can be held accountable for some more things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did hear that they promoted or assigned or appointed another interim police chief. I don't think that's any better than Weber.
Oh my.
Better. So
Really?
I don't know if we going from bad to worse. So we'll see. We shall see.
Yeah.
So what's happening?
Well, tomorrow we got some bills that we need to change. David Bowen is in the house, y'all.
What's up?
State Representative David Bowen.
Yeah.
State Representative is in the house. So tomorrow we got some stuff going on in Madison. DB, you want to, inform the people on what we have in Madison that they should take part in, or how can they take part in?
Gotcha. Well, first off, I'm going to say good luck to I got to get on the mic a little bit more. Oh, that's better. Okay. To Chief Weber. You know, he really has an affinity love for me, and just want to give him a big shout out.
Much love.
Now, to get the better things, as far as tomorrow, so the Criminal Justice Committee in the State Assembly is hearing. They have heard the 7 bills that came to us after the task force was created. And I had a lot of really strong questions for the author, Representative Jim Steineke. There are other folks on the task force, but it really just seemed like it was kind of swayed in the bills that they were bringing to us that actually wasn't trying to allow all the solutions that folks in the movement have been talking about, folks that are have been in advocacy spaces for quite some time, to really get at the root of why you have police overuse of force, police corruption, and the lack of accountability in charging and officers actually being held accountable. So from 7.5 months, it took a really long time. I tried to give them the benefit of doubt, but it really seemed like they had an underwhelming answer to an issue that is so big and so pressing that affects so many people.
Yeah.
And especially in Milwaukee. They never had a hearing here in Milwaukee. So it really seemed like they were trying to stifle the voices. And then, even in committee, they stopped Sister Mimi, Sister Camilla Ahmed, who was a part of the People's Revolution, from even finishing her testimony. So it was issue on top of issue on top of issue. And then to finally be in this place where we're talking about actually passing bills, and what we have in front of us is peanuts compared to what we should be really addressing.
Okay, so what are some of the things you feel like we should be addressing?
Well, I think you got to look at every aspect where people interact and come in contact with police officers, and what happens in those situations that can either escalate or de-escalate those situations. When are the situations where we can even change the dynamic and you won't even need to interact with a police officer? There may be times where literally sometimes we have officers being called to so many things in our community that they're being responsible for all situations rather than situations they're actually trained to handle. And then even if they are trained to handle it, do they need to handle it in a manner that police would handle it? Or could we call other departments, other types of personnel, other types of staff that can handle a situation where somebody's having a mental health breakdown, a situation where somebody just needs access to resources. And then, we dealt with it when we were out protesting, and you saw, this animosity and aggression and military style tactics from police departments against people that had signs, against people that wanted to advocate for change.
Right.
So there are so many dynamics where we have to talk about every instance where a police officer will come in contact with our citizens, and to ensure that there's a new dynamic, a new system being created where we don't necessarily need police in every situation.
So speaking of, what you mentioned about what happened last week in the committee that you sit on, so tell us a little bit more about, what's the likelihood of these bills that have already been presented? What's the likelihood of them moving forward? Yeah. So the biggest thing that I can highlight is the stark difference of what the movement and what folks that have been marching for 365 plus days now, what they've been asking to be changed, and what they ended up with. Yeah. So for instance, 329 reporting excessive reporting of no-knock warrants and just collecting data. People in the movement saw Breonna Taylor die from a no-knock warrant. People in Milwaukee saw Officer I think it's Vittner die of being involved in a no-knock warrant. So you had an officer and a citizen die, and the committee and the task force was like, well, let's just collect data. Right. And the movement is asking for people to be alive. The movement is asking for people to actually be valued enough that decisions will be made to keep their lives on the forefront. So instead of banning no-knock warrants, like
the Lakeisha Myers bill that's in the state assembly right now. Shouts out to her. They say we're just going to collect data because we need to understand who is calling for these no-knock warrants and what happens on them in those situations. But that's totally inadequate. That's totally under the mark of what people are asking for.
Right.
There needs to be some type of hold from having these warrants, period. And likely they're only being used for situations in drug dealing and things of that nature where they're rushing in unannounced to be able to try to get evidence that this person is doing things illegal. It's really like a 30-second difference and how those officers interact with the person. And listen, in the state of Wisconsin, rich white men aren't having their doors knocked down and cops busting in
Not
there
at all. Yeah.
shooting and like aiming firearms at their family and their kids. Nobody's doing that.
Right.
Right. But let's be honest, there are going to be Black and brown people that will be susceptible to actions like that. So that's when it really should be on this committee to say, look, we should at least hold off on no-knock warrants from engaging in them because they're too dangerous. And we're putting people in situations that, they don't know if it's safe enough. And let's at least go get the data and then come back and figure out if we need to continue it.
Right.
They did the opposite.
Right.
They have a committee that's almost 51% people from law enforcement backgrounds. And they're all saying, well, law enforcement needs it. Law enforcement wants it. But it's not necessarily rooted in what actually do people need? What rights do people need to be highlighted to build trust with law enforcement agencies? Why would you allow or continue this process where law enforcement agencies are doing things that they don't have to do? Right.
Right. And that sort of was the task of the task force and what members of the task force were doing. Shout out to Becca and others who were serving along with her on the task force. And when I say others, meaning people of the community, because the task force was sort of stacked with law enforcement and those who support law enforcement.
Right.
But I think that was what they were trying to accomplish with those recommendations, you would say, right? And trying to make sure that the needs or the demands of the people were addressed fully and what the committee would be deciding on.
Right. Supposedly that's what they were supposed to do. And then like another one, like school resource officers, right? Like we haven't, since 2001 and the shooting of Columbine, you had a number of policy decisions that were made to put police officers and different things in schools, metal detectors in schools and things of that nature. The criminalization on students and having officers in that environment is too detrimental to just say that we need officers in there because a school shooting might happen. We know that more effectively, school guidance counselors, therapists, and psychologists are way more trained, way more educated, way more prepared to intervene in situations where young people are engaging in violence or engaging in the potential to be to have an explosive environment where they pop off like that. So instead of looking at that end, the committee was like, well, let's just create standards for school resource officers.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we haven't always had school resource officers in our schools. Now, I remember back in elementary school, we had a number of support staff that were around, and they were like assistant teachers. They were definitely guidance counselors and a number of staff that were there that were always extra support. And they could take you out to class if they needed to, so you could cool off. They could talk to you. You build a rapport with them. They're from your community. And that's a different approach than saying we're just going to send an officer in there who's fully armed and can use force on students. So there are a number of different changes that we need on that front end too.
Yeah, it's a lot of those bills that's holding police officers to a certain accountability and making sure that we keep record of them. What's his name? I believe it's Supreme. Is Supreme working on a bill like that too? They just like to keep track of every time that they draw their weapon or something like that.
Yeah, so Supreme has two bills. Yeah, he has a decertification bill that makes it around the process of recertifying an officer, that they have to go through different processes, so they just aren't automatically certified again and again and again, when it's possible that they might not be showing the proper conduct to be able to show that they could be an effective officer.
Right.
And then this other bill is qualified immunity.
Mhm.
So he has that with Representative Brostoff. Big shouts out to both of them for focusing on that. So, looking at these processes where you have different instances where people are coming in contact with the system, different instances where officers, for their own wellness, should be going through processes that say that they are prepared, they are ready, they are able to be in the field, to be engaging with the community, engaging with citizens, or discovering that, you're unstable right now.
Right.
So one of the bills in the package where they talk about the psychological exams, we wanted to see greater and further extent and expansion of the bill, where it's every 5 years that you're psychologically examined if you're prepared to be back in the field, and after every police involved shooting. That's not in there, right? It's a number of different things where they should be thinking about what is it that people, what are the reasons that people don't trust this system? Oh, they don't trust this system because after Officer Mensah engaged in the shooting, he didn't have a proper mental exam.
That's right.
Right. And it wasn't really on protocol. Police departments don't have to sometimes do these things. They have to make the effort on their own to do it. And even if they are required, then what's the teeth to make them do it if they don't do it?
Exactly.
And the repercussions is it falls on us. If the state doesn't step up to say, this is the floor, this is the standard that you have to do, then, we left in court years later after somebody's life has already been taken, trying to say, like, why is the process allowing Chief Weber to make the decision that he did, where he literally verbally signed off on dude going back to the field, going back in the service, because he that was their policy, that was their protocol, rather than actually having and professionalizing it and saying, I want the best police force to be in my community, engaging with citizens, those who are ready to do it. And if something has happened that could affect them, I really want to make sure that if they're not ready to do that, that they're not out there.
Part of their argument was saying that they didn't want to infringe on his, medical rights, of HIPAA rights, of not being able to ask for that information. And I thought I heard some of the law enforcement saying, that particular comment. And I'm like, but how do you get to the root of not allowing for an officer to still be, back in the field if you're not able to get the necessary information that you need from that evaluation? So, like, what can, I guess, putting in like in the simplest of terms for people out there, like, what are some of the things that they can do to have an understanding, one, and then two, to be able to counter some of this?
Yeah, I think the best thing that you can do to try to understand like the solutions and the issue is, keep up with the People's Revolution. You guys have a great set of demands that you guys were expecting state government, local government would pay attention to, and say, what are the things that we can do to align with what people are asking for? So understand what different groups are out there asking for, different groups are doing. Big shouts out to Block and Angela Lang. They did a press conference last week.
Shout out to Block.
Pushing against some of these bills. One of the other bills, and that comes from the Senate, was to create these cop houses. And,
what's a cop house? For people that don't know,
a cop house in that sense is a funded house in the neighborhood that they will have either programming hosted by police officers or like surveillance, like occupying, like the look at Pierre's face. Pierre's like, what? Yes, that's what it is.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
There you go.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
That's Pierre's
Don't
face right
mind
there.
me, I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me.
Okay, there you go. So at the end of the day, it's not a family going in the house. It's not a community organization going into a house.
Yeah.
It is a specified house for police to be at.
Now, who's funding it?
And the state was talking about actually giving a couple $100,000 to do that.
Wow.
Right. So who asked for that? Sedan, did you ask for that?
I did not ask for that.
Tiff, did you ask for
Not
that?
at all.
Pierre, did you ask for
I
that?
didn't.
Hey, bro, did you ask for that? Okay. See? So nobody asked for that. But at the same time, I understand
Yeah.
there are colleagues of mine and they have ideas and they say, you know what, I think this would be a good idea. It don't necessarily mean it's evidence-based. It don't mean it's going to work. It means that I feel like we should just do this.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we have families in our community that went through a pandemic and they lost a place where they were going to live at. You know, we saw people struggling just to pay rent, just to pay their mortgage, just to hold on. We're seeing more and more outside investors buy out the houses
Yeah.
in our own neighborhoods.
Exactly.
This what we're going to do with the houses?
Yeah.
Right? This is what we want to do. So I have frustrations because it's like, you know, there are resources the community has been asking for
Yes.
to fund all types of stuff.
Yes.
We shouldn't have money for that. We should have money for families. We should have houses for families. And if you ask me, the best crime prevention is to put a family in a house because then, you know, their kids can be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That family has a place to go. They can watch over the property, the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
They can look out for their neighbors, right? They can call the city and say, hey, somebody's doing something. Can y'all come fix it? Right? At the end of the day, the officers in our community, a significant portion of them don't live in our community. So to have them to get on staff during the day, go to the house, check out, clock out, go back to their real house is a horrible precedent to set.
Right.
It's a horrible dynamic to be able to set and to say like this should be the norm.
Like, don't we have neighborhood watch for that though?
Exactly.
Like,
That's what and
Yeah.
the folks of the neighborhood watch live in the neighborhood.
yeah.
So they love it enough. They like, yo, we're gonna watch out for each other. We're gonna look out for each other.
But aren't there some already funded cop houses in Wisconsin? Because I think there's one in Racine.
Yeah.
And they were exploring one here in Milwaukee, right?
They were. And you know, honestly, you know, there are municipalities and police departments that will, you know, attempt to fund different stuff like that. I think the role of community engagement is for community organizations.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. And, you know, me and Chief Flynn didn't agree with each other a lot. And I think I said this on the show last time that like we both agreed too much expectation and responsibility was being put on officers for all these situations that they not even prepared for. The other thing y'all not prepared for is to do community building. That's not y'all role. Right. That's Von May's role. Right. That's the Office of Violence Prevention role. That's you know what I'm saying? That lies with established community organizations that are building relationships in communities. It doesn't mean that officers can't do things in our neighborhoods to be able to build rapport and to be transparent and say, hey, my name's Mr. Johnson. You know, I just want to introduce myself. Nobody's saying you can't do that, but it gets to the point where it's laughable that they would have these instances to call this like the solution.
Yeah.
When like people have been marching for them not to be killed, not to be mistreated, not to have their rights violated, not to have tanks that drive through the park to kick them out, tear gas, like stopping them from breathing. That's what people have been marching for.
Exactly.
And then the moment is being exploited. That's probably the best word I can use. This is exploitation of what the change that we have been asking for. Don't force feed us solutions that we never said was a solution.
To come up with the solution though, you have to at least understand the problem. They don't understand the problem.
I think they understand the problem. I think they don't care.
That most definitely could be true. Like that does sound about right.
And some people say solutions come from those who are affected by it the most.
That's true.
right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, we keep asking, in their mindset, law enforcement, fix the issue. Like, what's the problem? Go fix the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, person that has had your rights violated, person that does not trust this system, what's the issue? Give me the solution.
Yep.
Is a different dynamic. It's a way different dynamic.
Exactly. Hey, y'all, we got State Representative David Bowen. Make sure y'all like, love, share this podcast right now. Let's get to some of these comments and questions. I don't want us to, not be paying attention to the people, because the people are actually responding a lot in the comment section. So up here, what they saying?
Let's see here. We got a lot of comments. Scroll all the way back up. But
Here we go.
I'll go back to a comment that Lexi Sandoval said when she said the people over profit. You know,
I like that.
I do too. We need to focus on the people. Let's see here. She also said those families, they invite the police officers in. It doesn't impact them like black and brown people.
Mhm.
When you're referring to as far as the police don't come into those communities and all that type of stuff like
Mhm.
that. Let's see.
And this one up there, too.
Oh, here we go. Erica Schmidt. Why aren't police required to have trauma therapy after each traumatic event they encounter? We know bottling it up and suppressing it is a recipe for disaster.
Mhm.
Exactly. And we also know it's like some of the most dangerous situations for officers are actually domestic violence situations.
Mhm.
They make it sound like it's like police stops and like randomly somebody's going to start attacking them from a police stop. That's not true.
Yeah.
The one of the most violent situations is when you have one partner willing to use violence against anybody for interfering. So, you know, that's when officers need to have more than one.
Mhm.
You likely shouldn't have just one officer intervening in a DV situation.
Mhm.
But it you know, that can become traumatic. That can become violent to the degree where it will impact their mindset.
Mhm.
And if they can, keep doing that job with a level of impartiality that is necessary, instead of, and if they are affected by those situations, I also see in your question that if they are suffering from trauma, you don't force them to go back to work
Yeah.
without
Exactly.
actually being healed from those situations
Exactly.
too,
Yeah.
or being stable after those situations.
Definitely.
And some of our police departments are forcing officers to do so much overtime. It's like, we don't care what you're dealing with, get back out there. And then they start getting mad at the people they have to serve.
Mm-hmm.
They start treating with aggression and mishandling people with the same people that they're supposed to be working for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, does that challenge you to think to say, well, when you sign up to be a police officer, you kind of have that in mind, like, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, at times I kind of feel like that cry out to say, well, I'm going through a lot. I'm overworked. I mean, you're kind of signing up for that
Yeah.
sacrifice. You get what I mean? Like,
Right.
I mean, if you have a family, you're taking away from a lot of things just by doing this role. You know what I mean? So I feel like at the same time, you know what you're getting yourself into. You know what I mean? Yes, there should be some type of system put in place where they shouldn't have to work all these overtime hours and all that or whatever. So it doesn't affect them mentally when they leave the job. But at the same time, I go back.
It comes with it.
It comes with it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I don't feel like I'm just gonna empathize or sympathize with an officer knowing
Mhm.
this what comes with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just my person.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think the other end of the spectrum is the lower quality of the outcome
Mhm.
of their work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difference between normal wear and tear and like damage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually being hurt and
Yeah.
actually like, we have things set up where like you can get workers' comp to fill in for
There's
the
a little
time
different. Mm-hmm.
that you get hurt and that you need to be rehabilitated back so that you can go to work
Right.
effectively again.
Mhm.
And you know, sometimes we blur the line between what's expected and then what should be. You didn't come to the job damaged.
Right.
You got damaged by the job, and the job should at least make sure that if you do, there's a process so that you can get back well again. Not just say like, that's what you signed up for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, like-
people in our community deserve
Right.
Yeah.
that if
'Cause
that happens.
There's a lot of companies, organizations, what have you, that have, like an employee assistance program to help people who are dealing to cope and dealing with different things on the job or even just personally off the job. And so I think along those lines, it's kind of it's kind of hard to be on that teeter of balancing, trying to figure it out of, well, yes, that's what you signed up for. But at the same time, we need to have well-rounded or well taken care of officers who are going to be on the streets and not projecting or taking out their frustration and anger and trauma out on us as individuals. So if they can just get the basic necessity, basic need of being able to have that service provided to them, then, I would support that. I think hopefully majority of the people would support that too.
It sounds like what Britta is saying.
Yeah.
Instead, police departments need to complete the proper federal standing of the fit for duty examinations.
Correct.
So if they have to go through the standard fit for duty examination, and then if it does read that their evaluation says that they're not fit for duty, these officers are still given the option to, go back out. And not only just given the option to go back out, but they're even, not I don't even want to say offered overtime. It's mandatory at some
Correct.
point.
Correct.
So
There's a lot of, I think the word we've been using a lot is discretion. That police departments have been able to have a lot of discretion in what, if they're able to even, meet some of these obligations or standards is put upon them. So I think it's difficult because you see it in other places. Like there's certain standards that I have to meet on my job and I don't have the discretion of that. Same thing for all of you. So I think, the same things have to be, really dictated to police departments for them to stand by.
Yeah. And if you're going to run into them on the street, would you want to get pulled over by an officer that is burned out already after, being forced to do things that technically they didn't make the decision. It was their leadership that said that they had to do it.
Yeah.
So it is a balance. I think that's a good example. It's like you got to teeter-totter along that line.
But you can see the other side where, officers aren't showing us no mercy.
No, they're not.
They're not showing us any grace.
Not, right?
No, and we don't even. What about the times where they actually do commit the crime, right?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't show that in their history. Yeah, it doesn't show that in their history. This officer was just doing an 18-hour shift.
Yeah.
Like we don't even get the record of how long they've already been out there.
Yeah.
Most of the time, when they're overworked, they'll hide that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because in the Dontre Hamilton case, that officer was cited several times for inappropriately engaging with citizens. In assaults, he fought a clown on a corner one time.
Oh my God.
And it was like a literally dressed up clown, and they're in a physical fight in his uniform. And it's like he didn't really get any repercussions from any of the prior things that happened. So there are usually signs that tell you that your judgment and your conduct, the way you handling yourself, probably not to the level that it should be, but there continue to be excuses. And then especially if it's our police department, we have to deal with, his mistakes and his the repercussions of his actions.
Well, similar to Chauvin. I mean, Chauvin had prior incidences where he should have been reprimanded or maybe even removed from the department, similar to what he did before encountering George Floyd, and the department never did anything. So I think even to that, what you're speaking of, don't you think that there should be some type of, discipline, not just for the officer involved, but now we need to look at the actual department itself, leadership itself, for not holding that officer accountable to be able to prevent what the inevitable would happen with, George Floyd.
Yeah, and so one of the bills also that's a part of the task force is this bills on like a bill on body cameras, and it's not actually enforcing body cameras, but it's just saying the state recommends that departments get body cameras. Um, in that bill, there are no repercussions for any officer that may try to interrupt a video, inappropriately get like obstruct the view of the camera, turn it off or turn it on the wrong way. And a lot of us are saying like, well, if you're going to have body cameras, what's the point if you don't have any accountability if they are forced to be able to handle them the right way because they're trained to do it, and it's the same exact thing Officer Mentor did.
But isn't there a lot of kind of like I wouldn't say just discussion around the effectiveness around body cameras? Like while there's a need for them, but are they actually preventing crime? And even if we're seeing these things happen, our departments really, use enforcing them, or we have, families have to work to try to get the footage from body cameras. So like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's tough. We had a situation where we had officers that were part of this internal gang in the police department, which is on record. They were called the Punishers. They literally went around abusing people like on purpose, mistreating people, and not respecting their rights. And they were implanting drugs on young black men. They were doing cavity searches, inappropriate, obscene behavior by these officers. And if we had body cameras, possibly it would have made a difference. At the same time, you could look at other situations where it wasn't even the body camera footage from George Floyd that actually led to persecution and the conviction. It was from a citizen. It was from a young lady from video recording it that had the best view of what was happening. And even if you look at is that Officer Chauvin?
Yes.
His camera was like nowhere in the view to actually really see what was happening.
Yeah. And then the point of them being able to have discretion to turn them on, turn them off, when they want. I think that was something that was talked about within the task force here, of not allowing them the opportunity to turn them off and turn them on, like keeping them on all the way through their shift. But I think, it's difficult. You guys have a difficult job.
There's no silver bullet in a sense for like all situations, because it's going to vary. And I remember in like 2002, 2003, like me and young people from Urban Underground, we had a program called Cop Watch, where we literally would go around in the summer recording police stops, because there weren't that many dash cams at the time. And like that summer, we probably it was like the most police involved shootings we've seen to that point. So we felt like if they at least knew that they were being watched and it was being recorded, it might make a difference.
Yeah.
And some of that footage even led to actual lawsuits against the police department that forced them to change their protocol.
Okay.
Well, I think Vaughn said it best. He said, "What's the purpose of having a body camera if it's going to be inadmissible proof, in court? Something you can't even you have ones like Seville's, for instance. My brother's, it was skipping in the beginning, and it's just like the way you could see Seville running, you can tell he was already being shot at, and then like the audio with the cameras, they say it doesn't kick in until you hear the officer after he kills Seville say, "B stung me." So I mean, we just need, if we gonna do it, I feel like we should be doing it. I mean, we probably need to start another Cop Watch. That seems like something that should be effective, especially now with the way that police brutality has been on the uprise. Now they see that what happened to George Floyd, that's in their field of duty, it's okay for them to do that type of stuff. Seeing the consequences behind it and how long it's taken for someone to be guilty, when even those officers who have that mindset to want to, do the same thing to us as civilians, they want to hurt us, they even know that that's wrong. So now that it's an accepted behavior from the police, and not even just from the police, but the government, to be able to hold those police officers accountable. We might need to just start another cop watch.
I agree. I feel like we should treat the body cams like the GPS monitors. How they do felons. As soon as you don't cut it on, you cut it off. It's a signal. It's alerted where you are, how long you had to cut off, and now you have to explain what happened in between that time from the moment it cut off
Yeah.
till you cut it back on.
Yeah.
If you can't, then we're gonna definitely hold you accountable, especially if something doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Erica Hunt says blacklisted police on a federal level. All police officers must have good training and insurance to enforce the law.
Yeah, I agree. Monthly tests, examinations.
Britta says cameras don't work when officers can be selective on when they want to turn it on and say it works. Hashtag Mensa and their departments don't hold them accountable or discipline them for negligence. It's very true.
Yeah. And then, one of the things that you highlighted was just the reality that at the end of the day, and I told, I don't know if y'all ever been a community brainstorming, but community brainstorming had, it's like one of the oldest community forums in the city. It's always at St. Matthew's Church. Every once a month, every Saturday. So they had one on excessive force and police brutality. And I spoke and I said, it's possible, unfortunately, that we have to be honest. If we do everything we want to do, and these situations can still happen, it's possible. But at the end of the day, the more things that we put in place, the less likely it will be that more victims will be created. And it's so many times that you're talking about non-violent situations where there's no need for it to turn to an officer using a firearm because Sandra Bang just didn't turn her signal on, and Dr. Hamilton was sleeping in a park, and white people run from the police too
all the time.
So you don't got to shoot at Seville Smith.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just very clear that unless you have protocols and things in place, it's always going to be an excuse.
Yeah.
And we gotta stop anyone from being able to use excuses.
I think that work that y'all are doing is amazing, and I want to personally say thank you for the work you do, DB, Tiff, Pierre. I want to personally say thank you.
Yeah, that's for you. That's for you. I clap for you, boss.
Yes, it did.
I mean, the time right now that we're living in, this work this is abolishing the police. You know what I mean? You break it down into a certain structure to where, yes, you guys can keep the word, but the act of policing has to change with the standards that are put in play from us, the citizens, the community. And I feel like personally, when I do hear abolish the police, I'm like, well, that's kind of what we're doing. They're not used to playing it by our rules. And when they do, they give in to us, and it's just like, you get 1 inch closer to the finish line. And now we've created how to make that inch turn into a mile. And we're breaking the system down, and now that it's starting to be seen as if, we're on to something, and it's changing, and it's becoming a dramatic change. So they're trying to push with the bills that you have to fight against. You know what I mean? They're trying to push it to silence the people. In the way that they try to flood the community-based boards with what did they say they wanted to put officers on there, retired officers or active duty.
Police
Like
unions
what?
have more.
You know what I mean? Like they want to steal the voice from the people because now the people are listening. Now we're making the move to abolish the police. That's what we're doing. DB, the people got some questions for you out there, man.
Got some more?
Yeah,
Let's go through
they got
them.
some more.
Let's go through them.
Let's go. What's this?
Yep, we did, brothers.
That's what I was going to say. So there's some technology where cameras will automatically come on if a gun comes out of a holster, or if the sirens turn on. in a patrol car, so the dash cam automatically turns on in different situations. So as you see the balance of also like how tech and technology gets better, different things can be changed and adjusted to make it easier, so that you're not relying on the officer's judgment all the time to be able to turn things on and off and things of that nature. So you also have those dynamics, but then there's a push and a pull, because some of those things cost more.
Yeah.
Some of those things are super expensive. I think I saw a number of body cameras of like, it's about 1,000 per officer when you include like the data that needs to be collected and stored in the cloud, and then you got to keep it for a certain amount of time. So it's just like, sometimes even the solutions that you have themselves are like, it's only so much that you can get out of it.
So I'm going to shift gears just really quick. Just it's still along the lines of what the work that you're doing, but I think not only are you obviously writing and creating legislation to help just to protect all people, but mainly helping to protect black and brown people here in this community, but the work that you're doing outside of that, the engagement. So I've noticed, I think a lot of people have started to notice that you, Representative Bowen, Sedan, Pierre, and a lot of different men are going out into the community and doing your wellness checks. So talk to us a little bit about that, and then how you've been able to remain so fluid in your work, and not just being strictly isolated or exclusive to creating legislation, but your engagement throughout community.
No, that's real. And big shouts out to Brother Von Mays, Brandon P, so many of the brothers of the revolution, the movement, where we've always heard that old debate where they say, y'all care about when police take people's lives, but y'all don't care about when people in the community take people's lives. And that never was true, because we always was out there too, trying to keep people safe, trying to make sure that we protect our neighbors, our family, our friends, our community members. But what we also saw was the need for there to be a real street community-based energy around getting engaged and getting out there. So then it pulled all the brothers of the revolution, where we were like, okay, what can we do? Like, we don't have much, but like, we got ourselves, we got our energy, and we got credibility. So when we walk out there with the Pierre, and we walk out there with a Sedan, when we walk out there, with the amount of brothers that we got, somebody gonna know somebody, right? And it's actually cool to be able to see the dynamic, walk through the neighborhood, and then run into what was her name, Miss Stellis, where she had the garden on 36, and literally you just seeing connections being built. You seeing this community organic connection, just like being able to flourish and carry on. So that just comes from like, that's where I am at my best.
Yeah.
That's where I am most comfortable. Being in the Capitol all the time, like, that's just not me. Being doing interviews and like, some of this, the stuff that's just like, that's the job, but it ain't the call. The calling that I have is for my community. The calling I have is like much deeper than just a political position. I know that I have a real role, and I'm thankful to be in those spaces, because I engage with real brothers. I engage with real people in the community. And, that's just how I was raised. That's just how I came up. I was in a protest at the age of like 13, 14, and like loved it. Like, I felt home. I felt like my purpose was in that work. And then it all came to fruition that like, I would literally be able to, instead of working at UPS and Coca-Cola, and where else did I work? I had all these odd jobs. You know what I mean? And instead of doing those things, and I thought I was going to be an architect. So, you know, I just didn't see that many black folks doing architecture. So I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Let me just go defy the odds over here.
Yeah.
And then I was pulled into actually doing community-based and political engagement. So it was like, all right, cool. We do it a different way.
They know you out there too in the community. I'm up here.
Yeah.
Hey DB.
Yeah.
Hey DB. What up? Well, they call it, some people they don't even know he state rep. They be like Alderman. They know David Bowen though. And he's so smooth with it too. He be like state rep.
Right.
But I think that helps to build character, and I think it helps you in your argument, in your fight when you are at the Capitol, because you're able to say, here's my real lived experience. Here's the experience that I've gathered from community by being out there, and that most of you who are my peers, you're never going to be out there, whether you're white or black. Never going to be out there. Never going to be in these situations, and never going to be able to have these connections with folks.
And they're not comfortable out there.
Nah.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
Bruh, we could go get tacos.
Yeah.
On the south side and chill. And we could just go to, what's that, Carver Park?
Mm-hmm.
Chill with everybody. Like, it's just different because, like, I grew up in Sherman Park. I grew up in Burleigh Zoo. And, like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what you did.
Yeah.
So it's just like my level of comfortability is just different.
Yeah. It makes you relatable.
I can see that.
Yeah, it definitely makes you relatable to people and also it makes it seem as if you grew up with folks, but you were able to obviously become elected, do some things in life, but still remember where you came from.
Yeah. I saw Sean had a
he did
question.
Yeah. Let's see. Pierre.
You on the lap?
He said, "Give me an incident where you need the police, and I will give you a resource other than calling the police." Is that the one?
Yep.
Calling the police, tow trucks, EMTs, firefighters, counselor, social workers, neighborhood security, and on and on. Abolishing the police is the only answer.
We can't give them incident.
Yeah, I mean, so I always found it interesting that like there would be this huge animosity for police departments, and you would see a clear difference with like fire departments. Like nobody says
right,
screw the fire department.
Right.
Nobody says that because the dynamic of them actually serving the community and people not feeling like their rights are being violated are completely different.
You burned down the wrong house.
I think I actually recall there was a day when we were marching and we actually marched past the fire department.
Yeah.
And there was people like, "Oh no, we ain't got no problem with the fire. We love y'all. We love y'all. But F the police."
I don't think they was waving back.
I think the firefighters actually gave us like respect. They gave us nods, like they weren't there to get in the way.
Yeah.
So it is interesting because that just represents the frustration that a lot of folks in the law enforcement community they're tone deaf to understand.
Yeah.
Like literally, you don't realize. How could you not realize that your actions are leaving people in a position where they don't want to trust and believe in you?
Yeah.
Becky has a question. Becky said, "Will Evers veto piss poor bills for our community?"
Well, I think it's going to depend on what we see in committee tomorrow. So, you have some votes that happen tomorrow on all 7 bills. If the bills don't have any changes in them, I'm voting against them. Especially 329, which is the no-knock warrant data collection, which I believe, and I've talked to folks in the movement, that is an insult to the movement.
Yeah.
Especially with the death of Breonna Taylor, and then with 330 and school resource officers. That's a complete opposite of what great organizations like LIT, shouts out to them, Leaders
Yeah.
Igniting Transformation,
Kudos.
where they worked with MPS to end the contract with Milwaukee Police Department.
Yeah.
And to reinvest those dollars into school support staff that students actually need all the time. So it'll be clear if, and I hope folks are engaging their state reps. We're talking about, Democrats that represent areas in our state. And I hope folks are contacting them too. Don't always just expect that, the battle is just with folks that always disagree with you. There are some people that usually agree with you that also might not see eye to eye. And they might be like, well, I don't want to look bad, or I don't want to make it look like I don't support school resource officers. I don't want to make it look like I am shaking the tree too much. So they need to know if folks will actually support them.
Yeah.
If they do decide, to take a stand.
Yeah.
So we'll see what that looks like tomorrow. I think the governor will make his decision based on what he sees tomorrow too.
I'm gonna just say, for those of you who didn't get a chance to watch the live stream from last week of the committee hearing, it was one of those telling moments. Myself, Becca, Camilla, shout out to all of us and those of us who came and just represented. We testified, the three of us testified, and the resounding just feedback was not good. They definitely wasn't expecting for anybody to come and testify in opposition. I think they were expecting for law enforcement and the supporters of law enforcement to be there. But to hear us, so strongly, advocate against this, especially the two bills that Representative Bowen is speaking of, I think, they weren't ready for that. And so that leads me to thinking that, we have to do our part. The momentum is on our side. They're already going to do what they're going to do. But we have to show up and we have to, resist. And we have to give them what they don't expect. And I think, and Becca's saying dog threw the gavel, like the chair of the committee threw a whole temper tantrum when Camilla was reading off the demands of TPR, and he didn't want to hear that. He wanted to hear what was relevant to the actual agenda. Sounds similar to what meetings that we've been to in the past, and they never wanted to hear, but we still, presented it anyway. And so I felt my takeaway from that was we are pissing them off.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's good for them to feel that, because it's good for them to see that. I think they thought we were just going to come in there and just be these ignorant Black people, Black women, and not know anything of what we're talking about. But I think showing them different. So I say all that to say that, how can the people support you and support in the efforts of advocating against, the bills that, we want to see that you're helping to support there in Madison. And then what conversations are happening with your colleagues to ensure that, there is support of the people, you just not being the Lone Ranger there and being able to, stand up for the people.
Yeah, I think, and on the Criminal Justice Committee, you have Representative Tip McGuire out of Racine. You have Jody Emerson out of Eau Claire, and you have Dora Drake out of Milwaukee, where Jason used to represent. And then, you got me on that committee too. And then you also have Sheila Stubbs out of Madison. So you have a dynamic of Democrats on that committee that they should hear from people. And then you also want to contact all the Dems in the legislature and be like, hey, like, we need y'all to fight. We need y'all to oppose because it falls short. Now, if it was more adequate, maybe we could just sing Kumbaya and be like, okay, we'll try to get some more stuff done after this. But it's so short. Like, it's so short from where it should be that it it should find some level of opposition by Democrats saying we're not co-signing on what y'all want to pat yourselves on the back to celebrate. It's not the big hoopla that y'all make it seem. We still are being left behind, and Black people will still be hurt.
Yeah.
From you guys claiming that you wanted to do something, but from the beginning, that's what the email said. They y'all didn't want to do anything real.
Yeah.
So we're here to expose that. We're here to call that out, and we need our friends to stand with us.
Yeah.
But it just reminds me it's the nature of politics. That fear that you will be reprimanded or you'll lose something, that you can't take the heat if if something happens, you got to grow up.
Yeah.
I don't know what type of fight you signed up for, but like that's the difference of like where I come from. We had to fight for everything. So, you gonna come to the state legislature and just expect that they just gonna bend over and just give you to you. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
They are not wired to do that. The Speaker of the Assembly, Robin Voss, made a deliberate decision to make the task force in the way that he did, to try to stall it the way that he did. And then Rep Steineke, he signed off on all that stuff. So it's like, they have to feel what that pressure is from people. And then we know that we can win too. Donald Trump took on the whole Black Lives Matter movement last election, and he did not win, right? There are a number of things that have been fought for on the local level where the movement is being very effective in changing the dynamic. And they're not going away quietly. So I think that's one of the most powerful things that I'm seeing is that if people want to get engaged, there are many opportunities to do so, but you got to contact your own state elected officials. You have to contact and be a player in the game when it comes to knowing what these issues are, what they're talking about. Because, with enough pressure, with enough of a push, we could get some of these things instituted.
Exactly.
So, and we got God on our side. So we should do it.
Most definitely.
We should do it.
Where can people find out who to contact for those who may not know who to contact?
I think we'll drop it in the comments.
TPR group. Is some information posted with the People's Revolution, where they coordinated people going last week. They coordinate people going tomorrow. And it's all in their fan page and Facebook group.
Okay, now it's time to call out these people who don't support the bill. Black people. The skin folk who ain't kin folk. Becca said.
What Becca say?
Becca said.
Can y'all talk about Black people who defend these politicians who don't care about us?
Okay.
Orlando.
I mean, I think overall, I think overall, not just folks who have a title attached to their name. I think just the average individual who happens to be Black, but has shown a lot of resistance to whether it be the movement as a whole, the movement here in this community, and in any legislation that is trying to, hold the system accountable. You see people who are moving and shaking in various ways of saying, no, like we don't want to, hold the police accountable that way, or we want to provide dinners to police. We want to give them kudos, those types of ways. So I think
tell them about the gun line boss.
About the gun line boss.
I think it's one of those dynamics that's difficult because you would expect for an oppressed people enforcement in front of, white individuals who don't mean us any good. And, I've encountered it. I didn't like it. I've said it. and calling out those who need to be called out. So
That's a couple names out there. Somebody said Orlando and Tracy Bent.
you know, y'all can name call. We can call the names, but definitely, you know, sharing that it's time. You know, enough is enough of that. We have to be able to stand up. Like, if we're not going to stand in solidarity with each other, how can we expect for, you know, things to happen that are going to benefit us and have a positive impact for us as a people?
Sure. And you always gonna have those people. So
Yeah.
there's no escaping you know, that opposition in a sense of the people that you expected would be with you.
They're called
not
blue
with you.
lickers.
The list is long. So I'm just gonna say, like, it also, you know, encompasses people that, like, sometimes their silence is enough. It's not even that they were there in the room fighting for them. Sometimes they silence just like kind of just quietly allows it to happen.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've used the most of my time, and I remember being so frustrated with people. And, you know, I shouts out to Tracy Dent. I've known Tracy since I was like early preteen, right? We disagree on some stuff, but like my focus of advocacy is just gonna look different than his, but it's still all love when I see him.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's still the same thing, but at the same time, like we just gonna move different.
Yeah.
I hope that the folks that I'm with, we just louder than him.
Yeah.
Or we just louder than
Yeah.
some of the other stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Because this is what I love. I love being on the same page with Black folks that I disagree with in front of white people, because they do the same thing.
Yeah.
They do the same thing.
Yeah.
They don't agree,
Right.
but they will make an agreement and say, okay, you're going to play your role, I'm going to play mine, and this is what we will agree to.
Yeah.
Not that we just got to be out here fighting like cats and dogs, and then the white people looking at us
Right.
like they fighting like cats and dogs. So there's a way to move. And I'm going to Jack too. There's some stuff where it's just like, okay, that going too far. And then some stuff I got to hit up Tracy, like, bro, what was that? Like, we can have those discussions.
It's funny that we actually call like
Calling
this.
their names
It's
out,
just,
right?
it was just obvious in the atmosphere who he was talking about.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Becca wasn't letting it go.
I see Tracy, we still got to play that spade game, so it's all good. But you know, you're always going to have that. There's no escaping it. So it's just like, okay, I don't call people out by name. I don't do none of that. I keep my eye focused on the real oppressor.
Yeah.
As much as I may get frustrated that they in the way, and they probably even capping for the oppressor too, it's cool. I expect it.
Yeah.
I expect it.
Yeah. It comes with the territory. You're always gonna have folks who just, hey, I don't wanna step on that line. I don't want to go there. I'm gonna remain here and clearly make their stance known. But I think at the end of the day, like you're saying, you know, we have to remain focused on what our end game is. But it's difficult. It definitely is difficult when you are putting in so much work and you see people who are doing things that are counterproductive to that work. And you want to just pull them to the side and say, what are you doing? You know, join on this team. But at the end of the day, you know, we have to also realize that we can't control everything and what people do. We just have to keep letting them bootlick and keep letting them do what they're gonna do and move forward. Because our goal is for the safety and the thriving and the need of our community. So
yeah,
we address that.
It's so funny because I talk with Republicans all the time.
Yeah.
And like some may feel like, you know, oh, you don't know how to do it. And it's just like, bro, I've been doing it. On this issue, they really don't want to budge though. That's the difference. That like now I'm talking about like really helping Black people.
Yeah. Now you got to show whose side you on. For real.
So you know, but I have even private conversations where like I can't out the same Republicans that are like, they actually agree with me. Like this stuff is out of control. We got to reel it in. We don't let it got too far. And you know, certain names and police leadership like are countering, you know, publicly, but like there is a significant, don't get it twisted. There's always a significant portion behind the scenes that are like, man, this is crazy,
Mhm.
but I got to go along with it. And, I'm just at the front watching with a smile on my face, like, it must be good. Well,
Yeah.
we'll keep it moving. We'll keep fighting another way. We're going to find, we will have more endurance than them. We will.
I believe that we will win.
Come on
I
now.
believe that we will win. I believe that we will.
Because we got to
win.
get back to our calling.
Yeah.
What God called us to do in the first place.
Yeah.
And if we get focused on the frustrations of dealing with them, we are missing the mark of, being effective with our time, energy, passion.
Mhm.
We got better stuff to do. Chief Weber was coming for all of us. What we doing talking about Tracy for? What we doing talking about anybody when we have like real people that are a part of the opposition and they don't care about none of us, right? Aiming for all of us.
Right.
I saw the comment by the dude with the police union. It was like, I'm coming for anybody that helped to do that. What? You talking about? Who you talking about?
Yeah.
This entire
His
table.
name on it.
I want to ask him. Hey, sir, who you talking about?
This entire table.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like a friend to
Okay.
me.
Keep that same energy.
Yeah.
Keep that same energy.
Yeah.
Because we're not stopping. What'd I say?
Lorenzo Williams, I would like to know why don't state representatives don't respond when small black businesses are being mistreated by other nationalities in business?
I don't know. I'm a state representative that respond though. So
He's for the people.
contact my office. Contact 608-266-7671. Drop bombs on them. Boom. That's funny.
I mean, that's a good question. And I'll say even just for, working for a representative, elected official, it's difficult. It's a difficult job. And when I say difficult, never making excuses, but realizing that I need you now.
Feel like David Gruber.
Can you type
One call.
Can you type your number in
That's
there
all.
again? Can you type your number in the comments?
Type my number in the
Your office number.
Who got that? Who got over here? Can I type over there? Yeah, you can.
Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult to be able to respond to everything and take care of everything.
So the bombs were like a big up.
But that's definitely true. You want to be able to that's what being elected officials for, holding them accountable, because elected officials work for the people. And so their job is to respond on behalf of the people's needs, and to make sure those things are met. But yeah. Y'all, if y'all got questions, other questions for Representative Bowen, please drop them in the comments. Make sure y'all loving, and sharing this. Make sure y'all keep supporting the Revolution Ready.
Get y'all merch. Get y'all merch.
Get y'all merch. Drop a little for that Cash App,
Drop the bomb for the merch.
so that way we can continue providing you great content. And
Drop the bomb for 365.
shout out to CPR. So I want to make special mention of that. I'm glad you said that.
Harbor over here.
It's going down. It's going down.
The People's Revolution just hit a milestone in their work and being able to have now we're over a year, but a year of consecutive action. And I definitely think that we should be hand clapping for that, and making sure that people recognize the fact that there is a grassroots organization, community of people who came together, who didn't, like, a lot of us didn't know each other like this time last year, but we came together to really do something and really make some noise, build some awareness, but most importantly, seek justice. And justice looks different to everybody. But we've been on one accord. We've had discourse. That's normal for that to happen. But at the end of the day, we still here, united in that front for wanting to make sure that we are, holding each other accountable, but most importantly, holding the system that has, been oppressing us accountable. So it's good to be able to have, support like Representative Bowen, who not only comes out on the front lines and marches, but it's also, putting forth legislation that speaks to what the
Mhm.
people want.
Right.
And so when we, see folks like that, we have to continue to encourage them. But again, shout out to TPR for doing the work. I think there's a lot of naysayers, probably still is.
Yeah.
But TPR is still out here being effective. So shout out to everybody who's been a part of it from day one, or who recently just became a part of it and being able to do that work. So what else we got going on?
I believe that is. Do we have any upcoming events?
Well, before we get to the upcoming event, I just want to ask State Representative Bowen one question.
Mhm.
Do you have any plans for further political aspirations?
I think the best answer is I don't know, because I also, and I usually explain this, where I used to believe everything was about the next move.
Mhm.
If you get immersed in these positions, people just big your head up like, okay, do this next, do that next.
Mhm.
And then it's like, once you get to the place where like you're not scared to lose anymore, you're willing to take risks, it really don't even matter if you do it anymore, period. Because there's ability to still do this work and get the outcomes regardless if you're elected or not.
Mhm.
So now I'm at a point where like I don't live in that fear.
Mhm.
God broke me off of that fear.
Mhm.
So I could do something bigger.
Drop a bomb for God.
Drop the bomb for God. I could.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in a different kind of politics. Right now I'm in the legislative side. I've never been in the executive side. I've never been in the even like the law side, the judicial side. So Fred Kessler was like, David, you should become a judge. So it's like, whoa, okay, all right, that's what you
Right.
think. All right, cool.
Mhm.
So anything, sky's the limit. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll
You
see.
see that? Judge David Bowen.
Yes, sir.
Don't know. I don't know. But I do know is that like I'm effective.
Mhm.
And I always think that if I'm not effective, that's when I know when it's time to step back.
Yeah.
If like somebody else comes up behind me and they killing it more than me and I can't do nothing no more, I don't got the juice, I can bow out.
Yeah.
It's way too much ego tied into what you known for and your name and who
Mhm.
gets credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm past the BS. Like that was all a facade.
Mhm.
To make you feel good as if you're doing something. But
Mhm.
like now it's about outcomes.
Mhm.
If we can't save Black people, what we doing?
Yeah.
If we can't improve this city to, reach heights and, close the gap on achievement and opportunity that have been deprived for people for generations, what we doing?
Mhm.
So we'll see.
That sounds about right to me.
Supreme Court Justice Bowen.
The state Supreme Court.
Right,
Talk about it.
right. Or District Attorney David Bowen.
Ooh, I like that.
Has a ring to it.
Got
Yeah.
a nice ring to
We
it.
do it. We do it.
That's funny.
Yeah, that works.
Do you like that?
I
Sam?
do. Anything's better than Chisholm at this point.
That'd be a process. You got to go through
Anything.
having all that law experience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kim will help you. She ain't like that. We lean on each other in the movie.
Shout out to Kim.
Yeah.
If you ain't got a Kim Miley in your life, you ain't got nothing. Becca said, "Keep it real, DB."
What's that?
Whoa.
DADB.
Yep, there you go.
Thanks, Sarah.
Becca
There
said,
you
"Keep
go.
it real." Like, like keep it real. Keep it real. Like I'm keeping it real.
Yeah, you keep it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Was it the tone the way I said it?
How we
Yeah.
100.
I'm not keeping it real.
You are.
You keeping it
You
real.
keep it
Just
real.
look,
No,
this
like-
the team of non-bootlickers
That's-
right here. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on. Dropping the bomb.
Drop a bomb. That's right. None of us have shoe prints in our mouths. Bootlicking.
So I want to just make sure that we do let the people know about June 25th.
And Juneteenth.
Yep. So June 25th, before I forget. So it's a Friday. Two things are happening that day. One, that's the day that Derek Chauvin will be getting sentenced on that day. So we have to pay attention to that. And then more importantly, what's happening here locally. You guys, we've been talking about for the past 3 podcasts. We had attorney Kim Motley on the show. She's been doing an extremely wonderful job at exposing the Wauwatosa Police Department and just corruption and as a whole, as it relates to the John Doe hearing on behalf of Jay Anderson Jr. And so the judge is going to be making his decision on that same day. So June 25th, y'all. Make sure that y'all are staying tuned in. You can watch the live stream or you're able to join those of us who will be there in person at the courthouse. I think it's at 9:00. But we'll share it prior to that time frame as far as the actual time. So that way you're aware. And obviously, TPR will be keeping everybody abreast of that too. And then tomorrow, y'all stay tuned for what TPR is encouraging for folks to join with us in Madison, so that way we can find out, what this committee is actually going to do as it relates to the bills. But more importantly, we want to stand up. We want to stand up for legislation that's really going to speak to the demands of what we've been marching for, we've been asking for I don't know how long. So y'all stay tuned for that action tomorrow. And then Representative Bowen, you want to share anything else? And you said about Juneteenth as well.
Oh, Juneteenth. Yeah. So big shouts out to Men of the Movement. We will be at Juneteenth, and we'll be doing some work to get engaged there, kind of launch, and then open up the opportunity for brothers in the community to walk with us as we do our wellness checks, community wellness checks. And I think that's going to be really cool. Brother Von Mays will be out in Burlington. So we're going to make it a 2-for-1 day. We'll start off at Juneteenth, make our way out to Burlington for other Juneteenth festivities. And it'll be a good time all over the state. All over the state. You know who lives in Burlington?
Yeah.
Speaker Robin Voss lives in Burlington. The Speaker of the State Assembly. So the most powerful man in the legislature. So, it'd be great to just remind him, hey, some important issues that you should
really
pay attention
to it.
Do something real about.
Yeah. Tia said
Juneteenth is the perfect day to do it.
Tia says shout out to Tia. She encourages people to go. It's an experience needed. It's important. So Tia was with us last week when we were in Madison, listening to that BS, and seeing how the chair acted a plum fool, but how we were there, still representing for the people, and making sure that we got on record about what it is that the people want. So. I think we covered everything.
I think we covered everything.
Yeah, first off, let me just appreciate y'all. Y'all doing the real work. Doing the real work.
Is that pat yourself in the back?
I want a bomb. For that.
Bomb.
Give him a bomb.
Pearl Harbor.
Big up bomb. Big up bomb.
Well,
waiting on you.
Well, we want to say thank you to our viewers, and of course, thank you, DB, for coming. Thank you. I mean, we were honored to have you. Thank you, people out there, all of our viewers watching. We love you guys. And this is Revolution Ready. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday
at 5. We're going live.
Lights,
camera,
black. See
y'all next week.